Hello, my people, and welcome back to Flipping the Page with Antonia Carter, where you guys will get to join me on this journey as I go from a little nobody writer to a fully published author. Now, I must warn you, I am sick. I'm sure you can hear it in the nasaliness of my voice. But for the sake of consistency, I have decided to publish this anyways because I have a goal to reach. I will be a published author next year, and I cannot start making excuses now just because of a sniffle here or there. Now, for those of you who have been tuning in every single week for the last month of this channel's existence to see how I've been doing, you know that I finished my first draft about 2 weeks ago. So, woo! Yay for me. That is my first ever completed first draft ever in my 20 years of kind of writing. So, yeah, now I am moving towards the editing phase. I kind of was supposed to already start this week, but I realized I've never gotten this far, so I don't really know how to even begin. Don't know where to start, so I've been doing a lot of research on what that's supposed to look like. I know the general idea of what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I know what it looks like. I know what I'm getting at. Like, I know what the finished product is supposed to be. But how I'm going to get there, I don't know. You know, I've been stuck in the drafting phase, at least for this particular story, since 2016. So, you know, never made as far. You know, of course, I did a lot of unnecessary revising. So I guess you can count that as editing experience. But yeah, I've never made it this far. So I'm still figuring it out. So I figured, you know, while I'm figuring that out and trying to get that going along, because I really gave myself just about a month to finish my first round of edits, I figured what better way to procrastinate than to look back and talk about my top 4 mistakes that I made in my first draft. So that way you can avoid what I did and hopefully take a lot less than 8 years to finish your first draft. Big mistake number 1, which I kind of already talked about, but over editing while drafting. So I fell down a rabbit hole that seems to be common among a lot of creators, you know, writers, painters, and such alike. And I became obsessed with the idea of perfection, and I needed my story to be perfection. So I would write maybe a paragraph where, let's say it's our opening paragraph and it's our main character and, you know, she's walking by a pond or something. And then I'd go back and be like, no, a pond is stupid. Let's make it a river. And I'd be like, no, a river is stupid. Let's make it the ocean because the ocean has more symbolism I can use, and, you know, so on and so forth. I would spend so much time on this one paragraph, this one scene, this one chapter, that I would edit it over and over and over again until I was just burnt out. I would burn myself out, and I'm not even out of the first chapter yet. I was that psychotic person doing line editing for a scene that I was going to delete later on. Why am I sitting here checking for the grammar and the symbolism and all the things when it's in a phase where I'm gonna scrap it? I'm likely to scrap it. But I was doing it anyway. Because again, perfectionism, you know, like, I just could not stand to put something down that just sounded incomplete or sounded stupid. I couldn't allow myself to feel stupid. And maybe this might be a stupid thought, but I feel like you need to allow yourself to feel stupid or look stupid when you are creating something. At least for me, because when I allowed that flow to happen, allowed that possibility to be in existence, I found that things were flowing a lot more easily. I was able to just exist without worrying about what that existence looked like right now. So overall, this over editing was slowing down my process quite a bit. It made it a lot harder to actually finish my first draft, and it just led to burnout quite quickly, and burnout where I wasn't even accomplishing anything. Like, if I'm going to burn out, at least let me be trying to finish a book in a month and then burn out. Like, something where I'm actually like producing something. But no, I was getting burnt out writing the same scene over and over again. So quite psychotic. But once I got past that and I stopped the editing and I just put down what needed to happen in the story and I just got it out of my head, I was able to move a lot more quickly. I was able to let things flow. It was like moving a bunch of rocks out of the way so the water could just flow. It felt really nice. Big mistake number 2, neglecting an outline or a plan. Now, I know I've stated this in a couple videos, but for anybody who may be finding me now and this is your first video of me, hi, I'm Antonia Carter, and I used to be a pantser for about 20 years of this 20.5 year journey. Hi. So what does that mean? That means that I was just flying by the seat of my pants. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just writing whatever came to mind, whatever random scene happened, and would continue on like that. I had no way of connecting anything. I had no structure. I had no plan. I had a general idea of how I wanted my series to go, because I am making a series and not just a singular book. I knew the general idea of how I wanted that to go, but that was about it. And it is so far off from where I am now that I can't even call that much of a structure now. But for the sake of argument, I'll call it like a little she was a little soft structure, but that was about all I had. I had no plan, no outline. I had no way of putting this story together and actually making it make sense. The analogy that I am quite fond of is that I was making pounds upon pounds of flesh that was rendered useless because there was no structure to it. I was not making the bones to attach the flesh to give it structure. It was like that episode of Family Guy where Peter just wishes his bones away, so he's just a blob just rolling around. It was like that. My story was just a blob rolling around with no way of actually functioning in this world. So when I decided that I actually wanted to start taking this life seriously and go after my dreams and not just, sit on this and make cute little scenes for the rest of my life, I sat myself down and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And the main thing that I was doing wrong was not having an outline. And this is no offense or anything to any of the pantsers out there that are making it work. I don't know how you're doing it, but you're awesome. But I am not one of those people. I cannot simply write something and like turn it into a whole book without a structure or an outline or anything like that. So yeah, I sat down and I learned about outlining. There are thousands of ways for writers to outline their stories. There are story structures that you can follow. I use the Save the Cat structure for my story, and that worked out fantastically for me. So there's a hard outline that you can follow. There are people who will outline to the point where it's basically their first draft, and they can go straight into editing kind of essentially from there. There are people who have more of a loose outline, and then the first draft takes a little bit more effort, but regardless, there's some form of an outline that usually exists for people that helps them. And yeah, get to outlining if you're not already. Big mistake number 3, forgetting to flesh out my characters. Now, when I first started to consider silly little things such as providing a structure for my plot, I got so wrapped up in actually getting the story out of my head that I completely neglected my characters. Who are you? What do you want? Why are you doing this? If you get that reference, we can be the best of friends. But I had no idea who they were. I had no idea what they wanted. I had no idea how the story was going to go with them included. I had an idea what I wanted to do, but as you guys know, the characters drive the story. So if I give them no voice, if they have no backstory or no motivations or anything, what am I doing? What's the story doing? What's going on? So I actually learned towards the end of my first draft process that I needed to spend more time with my characters. I had actually hit quite a huge plot hole towards, I'll say the 3rd or 4th week of November during that whole November writing challenge, where I needed my character essentially to fix the problem, but I didn't know her well enough to have her fix the problem. So I was just staring this huge hole in the face. What am I gonna do? It was a little bit of an existential crisis. So if you're interested in seeing what that was all about, be sure to check out, I believe, part 3 of my From Blank to Book series. But yeah, I took a breather that week. I stepped back from my goals with finishing my first draft that week and spent time with my characters. And I was learning, what do they want? You know, who are they? What is their backstory? What's their motivation? What's their fear? Things that were going to shape how, not only how they were reacting in my story, but also like, how are we going to finish this plot hole? So yeah, you know, and I will say myself, they're pretty cool people, you know, spend some time with them and getting to know them. And I was like, you're a lot more awesome than I intended for you to be. So kudos to me, I guess. I will say though, even though I know them a lot better now after finishing my first draft than I did at the beginning, I definitely know for sure going into the editing phase that is going to be an area that I spend a lot more time. That'll be a huge canon event for me. Because there's just a lot more that I want to go into. I want to dive a little bit deeper and figure out their entire character arcs for the entire series, which I have a vague idea now, but I want to just get deeper. I want to have really deep characters that people can actually relate to. I guess realistic. I want really realistic characters. So I'm trying my best to really analyze every aspect of, you know, the human psyche or certain characteristics or habits or things like that to really bring my characters off the page. So yeah, I do feel great about the character diving I've been doing so far, but I'm definitely going to be needing to do more later. But also, pro tip to future me, don't overthink it. We still have a deadline. We still have to publish this book in 2025, so don't overthink it. Now, my fourth and final big no, big mistake. Big mistake number 4, not setting a writing routine. So previously, back in my lack of structure days, I wrote simply when I felt inspired to. So that meant, you know, I could have just watched a movie that had me all in my feels and maybe I got some ideas for some scenes or something, and I would immediately go write out whatever it was in my head. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then not come back to it. And that would lead to several spurts of inspiration where I could go like several weeks at a time, just writing day in and day out. I wake up, I want to write. I go to bed, I want to write. I'm keeping track of my dreams in case I get creative in my dreams, like I'm going all out. And then I go months upon months upon months of nothing. So, as I've said, I had the dream for this book in 2016, specifically the summer of 2016. And I did not start getting serious about this journey and, you know, doing outlining, structuring, researching, all those sorts of things until summer of 2024, this past summer. So, for all my numbers peoples out there, that is 8 years that I was just writing based off of an inspiration. There was no routine, there was no structure whatsoever. You know, not only was I not structuring my story, I was not structuring my life as a writer. Now compare that to post learning how to create a writing routine and all these things for myself. I started the outlining and all that in summer of 2024, and I finished my first draft ever in November 2024, like at the end of November. So that is 5 months compared to the 8 years that it took for me to even get this far. So writing routine, highly necessary, highly recommended. Now, just like most things in this world, a writing routine is not one size fits all. You're not going to be able to paste Stephen King's writing routine onto your own life and just expect it to produce the same caliber of work. So for me, I decided that my writing routine simply meant doing something productive every single day for my book, taking one step every single day towards publishing the story. So some days that was writing, some days that was outlining, some days that was going back and spending time with my characters. Some days it may have been watching something that I knew would give me inspiration. And I would make sure to be a little bit more strict with those sort of definitions, because I could easily just define binging Netflix all day as like me finding a source of inspiration. But I would make sure it's a story that I knew, like I was reading a book for this particular reason, or watching a movie for this particular reason, something that was pertaining to my book. But to me, that counted towards my writing routine. Or even, I want to be a self-published author one day, so I was looking up LLCs and how to go about making my own publishing company one day, if that's something that I want to do. To me, like, so long as I was doing something every single day that brought me one step closer to being the published author that I want to be in 2025, that was a-okay in my book. So I will say now, after going through these mistakes and learning what not to do with my first draft, I'm definitely a lot more confident with making first drafts in the future, like new stories and such, because I know it won't take another 8 years ever again in my life. No matter what, like, I've wasted enough time. I'm not doing that ever again. But I'm actually really excited for my future as an author, just with learning something new every day or every week, something that improves my skills or my writing time or anything like that. This is just one of those things. So I actually was able to structure an entire separate series while I was still writing my first draft. Like, while I was doing my first draft during the November challenge, some inspiration just kind of struck me. I was really feeling myself because I had went over my goals for that week, and I don't know, it was just flowing and it just came out of me. And just the way that I went about that new series compared to this one that's been sitting on my brain for 8 years, it was a completely different experience. I feel like I outlined this entire series in like one night versus like the 8 years that it took for this book. So I don't know, that excited me as well. And the fact that I can even think of future stories in a more structured way that would actually make sense, that I can put down and really lay out what my book release plan would look like beyond this book, beyond the series. So yeah, so I hope hearing about the top 4 mistakes that I made is going to save some people out there from doing what I did and taking 8 long years to produce one book. Don't be like me, learn from me. Wish me luck, guys, as I embark on this editing journey. This is completely new to me. I've never in my life gotten to this phase of the journey. Please drop some tips down below as well if you have an idea of what you're doing. Help me out, because I don't have an iota of a clue. So drop some tips down below if you guys know some helpful ways to go about the editing process, how to start off, just some things that I should be looking into, anything like that. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. But thanks again for tuning in to yet another episode of Flipping the Page with Antonia Carter. You guys have flipped another page with me as I have gone from the first draft phase to this editing phase. I am so excited. Also dreading it, but mostly excited. So tune in next week to see what progress I've made.